Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Health Chats podcast. I am your host, Kelsey Grieveson, and I am sitting here today with Miss Lexi Bold. Lexi is the founder of Bold Fitness and Living Boldly Retreats. She is joining us today straight out of beautiful Tulum, Mexico. Are you in Tulum?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for
Mhm.
being here.
Amazing. Thank you for having me. This is so full circle. I know that the one of the first times me and you connected, I had you on my podcast and I just really admired you. I remember thinking like this girl is so grounded, so cool. I loved your story and you shared a lot of that for my listeners. And so I'm very grateful to be here.
And I'm so grateful to have you here. I know I was just thinking this morning, I went and looked because I was on your podcast and it was at such a transformative time for me where I had either just gotten back from some solo travel or who knows what. I need to listen to it again. But yeah, 2023. And now we are early
Wow.
2026.
Yeah.
And so I want to know, starting kind of then, because that's when you and I connected, what shifted the most in business for you? Because you were, I believe, still living in Canada. And fast forward, you're in Mexico, you're doing this beautiful life. It looks amazing. Tell us all the details.
All the details. Yeah. So, I mean, I think if I were to look it back 3 years from now, I honestly think and I'm sure you understand this as well in business, like everything is just kind of slowly compounding. You know what I mean? And obviously, I started my online coaching career when I was quite young. I was, 19, 20 years old, and back kind of before everyone was online coaching. And, 3 years ago, I would say that I was in Canada. I very much knew that I wanted to continue to grow my business so that I could move to Mexico. That's always been the goal, like to just have such an established network of, clients and a business that's growing so much that I can leave and go to Mexico and it's bulletproof. It still, I can still serve my clients. I can still show up online. Obviously, we live in a world now where social media gratefully connects us in crazy ways. And so me and my boyfriend moved out here almost 2 years ago. It's been almost 2 years, which is crazy. Best decision of our life. And this has also brought us new opportunities. I started hosting retreats here now too, which has been very actually out of my comfort zone. I've been an online coach for almost a decade, and that is quite different than the retreat space and actually being one on one with, all these women for an entire week. So yeah, it's been a journey. I'm very, very grateful. And I definitely would say that the biggest shift was just moving, like actually like leaving Canada. I didn't know if we would like it. I didn't know how it would go. I honestly didn't expect we'd still be here. And yeah, we got rid of everything we owned like 3 months ago and we're like, we're not going back to Canada. So
Oh my goodness, I just got
yeah.
chills from that. That's insane to think that it's been 2 years. I feel like you
Mhm.
just moved there. Time flies
Yeah.
by so quickly. Because I was there
Mhm.
with you in would that have been
January.
2024?
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
exactly 2 years ago and I moved here 3 months after that.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's so basic and, like, so inspiring too. I know not just for me, but the people listening, a lot of people who listen to this podcast are, like, business-minded. They are maybe a couple steps behind where they haven't dove into their side hustle yet, and they're learning
Mhm.
about health and wellness and, like, what practices does it take to truly step into your purpose or, like, a higher state of being. So I
Mhm.
want to start there for you. Who was Lexi before this current version of you? And what was it that helped you say, okay, I'm going all in on business, on my fitness, my relationship, and then now moving to a different country?
Yeah. You know what, Kels? There's like so many parts of my journey that I can touch on, but I actually think I'm going to start with this specific one because it's relevant to you. When me and you went to Mexico in January, for those of you guys listening, I hired Kelsey to come spend some time with me in Mexico. And at the time, my kind of niche has always been fitness and nutrition, more bikini competitors, that kind of stuff. And you were a lot more like mindset coaching, mindfulness, meditating. That stuff was new to me. And so you actually I don't think you know, but for that week that you made me get up at 6 in the morning and meditate. which was not what I wanted to do. That was definitely a pivot point for me because for those of you listening, I've always been a pretty high strung person. I wouldn't say that I love to necessarily slow down. I would say that I typically had a lot of work ethic, but also a lot of distractions and go, 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 right? Always on to the next thing. And I think that week when you made me meditate it and like commit to that habit every day, even though it was just a week and it was an hour, like when I went home, I just feel like it really like the way I can describe it is I felt like I was like high or like floating. And I didn't realize it until I got home to Canada and I actually told my boyfriend and he's like, you just seem so happy. And I'm like, yeah, like something about that meditation just changed because I think that it really grounded me. It really slowed me down. And I realized that, you know, everything's going to get done. Everything's going to come the way it's perfectly supposed to be. I don't need to try to control everything and stress about everything and just tap into like that that vibration of fear all the time. I feel like I was living in a lot of fear and just, through meditating, you introduced me to that. I went home, I kept meditating. I would say that's one of the biggest things that really helped me shift in the last especially the last 2 years was just, yeah, slowing down, like, really, like, calming down my mind, and that's just, like, continued to with living in Tulum and being in nature more. Obviously, I'm at the beach all the time. I watch the sunrise and the sunset every day. I'm very much connected, I would say, more to earth here than I was back home, especially living in Vancouver, which is where I was before I came here. But, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because it's like it's so true. Like you have no idea how much that meditation practice really like changed something in my mind. So thank you for that.
I'm gonna cry. That makes me so happy because yeah, like, that was 2 years ago. Feels like it
Mhm.
wasn't, but at the same time does. Like, it's this weird
Mhm.
kinda time warp that's like, "Wow, that was a while ago," and knowing that it has made that big of an impact in your life just, like,
Mhm.
checks off every single belief that I have for what I do and
Mm.
what I
Mm.
like to talk about and share with people, so thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you
you're
for
welcome.
sharing that with me and seeing too that, like, you are so successful even with slowing down. I think a lot of the
Mm.
times that's the belief that people struggle with is, like, in order to be successful and achieve a lot and make a lot of money and have the body and the relationship, like,
Yeah.
I've gotta be moving fast, 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 go, go,
Yeah.
go, right?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
it sounds
Yeah.
like that belief has really shifted for you.
100%. Like I do believe that people operate in different ways. Like some people are super extroverted. They thrive off a little more chaos or a lot of being around people, whatever. But I think for me, like being able to slow down has just given me more mental peace. So I'm enjoying the journey more. It's not that it slowed me down. It's not that my business isn't continually scaling. Like Bold has grown so fast in the last year. It's so surreal to me, Kelsey. I'm like, how is this happening? But yet I just feel like because I've been able to slow down and ground myself a little bit more through, my morning meditation, my journaling, like these habits that I've recently just in the last few years really started to tap into, it just makes me enjoy the process more, enjoy the chaos, enjoy the work, enjoy the process.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. So
Thank you.
now, where you are, you coach fitness competitors for the most part.
Mhm.
You do both, I know that.
Yeah.
But I
Mhm.
really wanna talk about the fitness competition side of things because that's a world that I don't live in at all
Mhm.
as a health coach. I do work with women on fat loss, but just in conversations I've had with women who have done shows, I can't wrap my head around it. So I want you to teach
Mhm.
me, like, everything about how you work with women, how you know they're good for doing a competition in terms of, like, relationship with food, and maybe if
Mm.
there's someone listening who's thinking about it, how
Mm.
can you help them take the first step?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I could talk about bikini all day. I'm so passionate about it, honestly, Kelsey, because I think that competing in bikini has taught me so much and it still has. So, to put it into a little bit of like a brief journey, I feel like when I originally competed 5 years ago, for sure it was just out of insecurity. I felt like I needed to prove myself as a coach. I felt like I needed to get up there in a sparkly bikini. I needed to see my body super lean. it was going to be like a one and done stepping point, as a coach. And since then it's just evolved into this beautiful journey of like really, really like being so consistent with a goal and going through all the ups and the downs of, okay, now we're building muscle, we're gaining weight, we're getting strong, we're not doing cardio. Okay, now we're cutting calories, we're preparing, now we're dealing with the pressure of going to worlds. Like every part of the last 4 years of me going from not knowing a thing to, placing seventh in the world last year, it's like it always is teaching me things about myself. This last season that I competed, I took 2 years off to build, which is like a really good time frame. When you want to compete, you always want to give yourself a good amount of time, in my opinion. I gave myself 2 years off to train and prep for worlds. I had placed sixth in 2023. And when I went back last year, I placed seventh. So I did worse on paper, right? And so on paper, it's like, well, a lot of people would think like that sucks. But for me, it was like, wow, I worked so hard for 2 years, came up even shorter. And it just taught me so much about you really have to love the journey because you can't wait for the judges to validate you or that world, championship medal that, I may never get, right? Especially if I want to have kids soon. So, yeah, I think just when it comes to bikini, anyone considering it, I think when you look back at, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we didn't know as much about women's health. So typically, I feel like what we have seen is we've seen a lot of women who have competed in the past and have had poor experiences. They were put on extremely low calories. They were starved. Bikini was originally a category where girls are just extremely thin. And I think that kind of got like a negative, kind of narrative going around about competing. And what I'm seeing now is we're learning more about women. We know that they can eat a lot more. We like, this through your coaching women through fat loss. Like it's really truly no different than what you probably do, except honestly, you just dig a little deeper. You do push your body harder, and you are obviously trying to get from that, healthy range of 18 to, 18% body fat ish to like you are dipping down to that lower body fat percentage. So yeah, it's definitely a process that I think a lot of women actually genuinely enjoy and can learn from, but you have to really be patient with yourself. You don't want to rush it. You want to give yourself a lot of time. And I think it can be such a beautiful, actually, like pretty healthy journey for the most part if it's done with a coach that cares about you. And if you're able to like really stay rooted in the reason for doing it, it's not a way to validate yourself. It's so temporary. Like it's so temporary. I don't even remember what it feels like to be 12% body fat because you get it and then it's gone. Like
Yeah.
it's so temporary. So if you're just doing it for that, like you're going to come out of the other end feeling disappointed. And that's why I warn my girls. I have 18 girls competing this spring, 16 for the first time ever. And I've told them, you girls, don't fall in love with this version of yourself too much. You know what I mean? Because you're worth a lot more than that. Your value is not based off body fat. And as exciting as this is, it's not going to be in July when you do have to gain back that weight, right?
That is
Hmm.
such a journey, I bet, like, even just in my own body journey and having to learn to love myself at, like, all sizes.
Mm,
Knowing that you drop women down to you said 12% is the lowest normally,
around that, I would say.
around 12?
Yeah.
And I'm curious because like, hormones is a really big one too.
Hmm.
How do their hormones respond when their body goes down to that 12% and they're, like, eating much lower, they're doing cardio, they're doing all the things? What's that look like?
Hmm. So honestly, I would say that the biggest thing people need to understand is everyone is so different. So when you look at me, for example, I've had a incredible experience competing in my opinion. I've never lost my period ever. I've had a period be late for like 2 weeks, and that's the most in 5 years of competing. I've done over 18 months of dieting, okay? Never lost a period. My ovulation was late by 2 weeks, 2 preps. Okay, that's it. And I was 103 pounds on stage, right? So when you look at me, it's like, oh, okay, well, my hormones, and I do blood work, they've never been in a, on paper, a horrible state. Has my mental health struggled a bit at times for sure, my energy for sure. But I think when it comes to hormonal health, like everyone is different. And the unfortunate thing is, like, some women get to that like 18, 20% and they can't ovulate. And their body's just like, nope. and even higher, right? There are some women who like literally like they can't keep a regular menstrual cycle or mental clarity or energy if they're, let's say below 120 pounds or, like people have that threshold. So I think that that unfortunately does start to kind of weed out the people. Typically you are going to see people that are a little bit more genetically blessed in competing, especially at the pro level. But with that being said, I think that if you work with a coach for a long enough period of time and you're able to get your maintenance calories up super high, your stress super, manageable, your muscle tissues in a great place, your insulin sensitivity, if you're able to do all these things, I do think that I would argue that doing a competition prep could be no more harm on your body than women who want to run a lot or go to F45 or do hit training, because you never know. Like I've seen girls that if I put them on sprints for running, within a week, they're not like their body's not responding. It's too stressed. So I'm like, okay, you're someone who can just walk. You're going to have to walk 20,000 steps a day instead of doing any hit training. Whereas some girls can do hit every day, keep a regular menstrual cycle, have, 15% body fat, especially a lot of my older women clients. Like I would say a lot of my older clients that are over 40, 45, they're kind of like the genetic freaks. I won't call them that for sure, but I'm like in my head, I'm like, like, there's something, there's genetics that definitely play a role. So I think to answer your question about hormones, I just think you got to give yourself a lot of time and you've got to get your metabolism to a good place. And so that's why, like, the main priority with my girls before they compete is, do we have enough time? Are you willing to give me enough time? Are you strong enough? Have we built enough muscle so that you're not going to, wither away? And have we got your calories high enough that you can sustain a 4 to 5 month intense diet? Because that's kind of what I would say prep is like, you want to do the pre prep in advance, but I would say the actual cut, like, I want to cut women down when they're within probably, I would say, like 10 to 20 pounds of stage at most.
Mhm.
That's the
Yeah,
most I wanna try to cut at one time.
I love that answer because you're right. And that's what I see in women too. It's like also quite often depending on their previous history of relationship with food and like yo yo dieting, that is
Yeah,
normally the call it avatar that we can't put into a deficit. Like we cannot cut right away. It's like, no, we need to get you regular. And for some women, being one of them, I always look at myself as the experiment. It's like, I need to be there for my assumption is like multiple years because I starved myself for so long.
yeah, yeah,
So I love that approach and also not like boxing people into one because you're right. Like we're all so, so different. And
mhm,
so if I came to you, because
mhm.
maybe it'll happen one day. I'm currently present day, no.
I don't believe it, but if you're listening to this, you guys convince Kels to come run it up on stage. Let's go.
Maybe we'll see what the timeline looks like, but I'm still in that kind of like maintenance, eating enough to
Mhm.
make sure I don't lose my period. Cause I am that girl that's like, if I go for a run, my period's gone. It's like
Yeah.
that level of stress. So
Mhm.
I come to you, whether it's Kelsey or someone of my kind of like shape, size, habits, how would you work with me through a prep
Mm.
journey?
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at your body, like this is competing is very much a aesthetic, whatever way you want to put it. At the end of the day, like the girls that do the best, we're going after a specific look. The judges want a specific look, you know? So when I look at a client and I look at her body, the first thing I'm going to do is ask her, "Hey, Kelsey, what do you want to get out of this?" Right? Some women are like, "Oh, I just really want to get up on stage. I just had my last baby, a year ago." And for them, it's kind of bucket list. So if they're sitting at, 25% body fat, they look pretty good, they're in a good routine, I might be like, okay, we can do this in a certain amount of time, but I'm going to look at you. I'm going to, kind of look at your body and see, okay, what areas do we might maybe want to improve on? Right. Some girls are very quad dominant. So I might look at them and be like, okay, like we need to chill on the quads. The quads are there. We need to bring up the glutes. So that might be a girl who, yes, like we're training glutes 2, 3 times a week, depending on volume. And we're trying to bring up that spot in size. Maybe we're trying to build shoulder strength. Maybe you come to me and your calories aren't in a super great place. And so we're working to get that up. Right. So it's kind of case to case, but I would say I'm going to look at the client. I'm going to understand their goals, and typically I'm going to throw them in a phase where we're eating a lot of food and we're training. we're training to build, we're training to get strong, we're getting calories high. That's typically like the first steps before we choose like a show date or like an exact end goal.
Mhm. Cool. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like it sounds like a build phase a little bit. It's like, let's build everything up, make sure you have a solid foundation. And so say I get to that solid foundation, because 'cause I'm just like, I'm so
Mhm.
curious, like
Of
in
course.
terms of like calories and like my day to day. Currently, right now, I go to the gym 3, sometimes 4 days a week. I'm training, I'm lifting super heavy, and I'm eating quite a bit. I'm eating like
Mhm.
2,200 calories most days. So
Nice.
there's me building.
Yeah.
Then what?
You're basically on paper, I would say you're like where I'd want you to be before we start a prep. And so another thing I will look at for sure is body weight, based off your height and your body weight. I do like to kind of I give my girls like an idea of their stage weight, mostly because number one, they usually shit their pants when they hear it, and I need them to like wrap their mind around it because I don't want that to be like I think some women do have like a little bit of a threshold with the scale, and like that's absolutely fine. But I don't think competing and tracking all this data is going to be super great for you if you won't, if you have a little bit of a block with the scale. So I will typically look at a client and have an idea of their stage weight. And based off that, I will look at, a calendar year and I'll say, okay, if Kelsey's at a point now where I think she's probably going to need to cut between 12 to 20 pounds for stage, that's probably going to mean that we want at least 12 to 20 weeks, give or take, to cut. Maybe even a little bit more, right? Because we just want a little bit more. The more time, always the better, right? The less low calories need to go, the less we'll have to do as much cardio. But on paper, also, I always like to be clear with the client of like, how far do you want to push? Because I am not a coach who's going to tell you, hey, Kels, your cardio is going up to 40 minutes this week. Like, sorry, scale's not moving. Like, I won't do that. But if I have a client who has worked with me and wants to win her pro card and she's sitting at, 13, 14% body fat and she's already doing 30 minutes of stairs a day and her calories are pretty low, I will have a conversation with her of like, hey, Christina, this is what I think we can do. We can try lowering food a tiny bit next week. I want you to text me, keep me in the loop with how you're feeling. We can try to crank cardio up a little bit more. We just need another pound or two off your legs. We just need your legs a little bit tighter. And then I think we're going to be right on the money with what the judges want. And that's a discussion that we'll make together, right? Like I do care about my clients' health a lot. With that being said, of course, with competing, like it's not always the first focal point for women. And that's why I actually try to be more protective of my girls' health than they are. Cause I do find a lot of women want to win. They're competitive. They don't care. They're excited for me to lower their calories. They're excited for more cardio. And like I get it. But also I don't want this to be a situation where, a year or two from now you're telling everyone how this ruined your body. This was the worst thing you ever did. Like I pray that never happens with my girls. And I am extremely hands on with my bikini girls. They are my pride and joy. Wake up in the middle of the night thinking about these girls and their posing routines and like it's like they're my daughters because we are so close in contact. We are working so closely towards a common goal and it's constant feedback. Fix this, a little more of that. Like it's very different than lifestyle where I would say lifestyle coaching is a little bit more like flow, you know? This is more competitive.
Definitely. I love that you take such a personal approach with everyone because 'cause I'm
Mhm.
asking they're pretty, like, direct questions. It's like, yeah, like, "How what next? What next?" And there's
Mhm.
no, like, this, and this, and this. It's, like,
Mhm.
dependent on the woman, which I think even
Yeah.
just me, I'm like, "Oh, that would be nice." Like, I would probably hire you as a coach, and I'm sure other girls listening too are like, "Yeah, it sounds like a great approach," because I mean, you probably hear it, and even just in the wellness space, there's these
Mhm.
stories of like, yeah, my coach like barely even cared, was just like, eat this and let's get you that body. Where
Mhm.
your approach seems very holistic, where it is about the journey. So
Mhm.
when someone comes in and maybe they are like, yeah, I just want to be, fit as fuck, super skinny,
Mhm.
that girl up there. How do you help them reframe their why?
It's a good question. I think that because I currently compete, I think I'm very much able to speak from experience. And so I do find that my clients and my athletes that hire me take what I say seriously. And so I think how I try to is I share a lot with them, my previous experience. So, when they come in, they're like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. It's like, yeah, but also, babe, like, life's going to go on after this show. And like, as much as you think this is the only thing that matters, you have a life to live, you have family, you have, all these other things. And so I think how I try to help them reframe it is just by like sharing with them my own experience, explaining to them, that I felt that way too at one point and that this is what I've learned. And I think most of them are able to kind of start to work on that reframing. But, winning and placing is a big one, right? Like this is a sport where women are not only dieting and training, and these girls spend a lot of money, okay? Bikinis, hair, nails, tan, polygraphs. Like my girls are all natural. They have to pay $100 every show to get their drug testing, their polygraph done. Their bikinis, $1,000 for a decent bikini. So they're paying me. They're doing everything, and you know, the girls care about the outcome. And don't get me wrong, to be honest, I'm not putting you on stage if I don't think you're going to be top. Like I just won't, because I've done that in the past, and I realized that too many girls care about the outcome and think they don't. And to me, it sounds intense, but I told myself a few years ago, I'm like, okay, Lexi, from now on, you need to be really honest with women. And if someone just wants to have fun and get on stage, don't coach them. Like, don't accept them, because I know how much effort I put in, but I know how much these girls care. January rolls around, they're like, I just want to get up there. And then they get up there and they place, third or fourth, and they're crying backstage because they didn't get the outcome they wanted. And it's unfortunate, but I get it, but there's so much time and energy that goes into this. And so I think the best thing I can do is know that they are going to all have their own journey. There might be women this spring that are upset with me, Kels, truly. I have a crazy team this year, and like I have held the standards so high that I get goosebumps saying this, but like I am like, I want to be the best natural bikini coach like in Canada for women. Like that is the goal. I've built a team, I've built a posing academy, and these girls are all going to look crazy, and they're all going to be up against each other. And there's going to be some that win and there's going to be some that don't win. And I've mentally prepared them for that. I've given them the speeches. I've told them, and all I can do is pour into them and know that they're going to get it. Whoever's meant to win will win, and whoever's not will not. And like this year, look at me. I didn't win. I didn't get top five again. I told the whole world I wanted top five in the world, and I got seventh, and I wasn't even fucking close to that top five. Seventh was nice, but it's like, I've had to take out a little bit of the emotion, and I've learned that from my coach, because she's like, Lex, like, the girls are going to be upset sometimes, and no one's going to be super happy when they don't win, but all I can do is bring them in as their best.
Yeah. Oh, you hold the word that comes up is command, but like in such a grounded
Mm,
way. Like you hold command so well. And I think
yeah.
it's because I remember when I was there with you, like you're a very spiritual being. I know that you have a belief in God, and like your practice there is just so strong, and that comes through in how
Mm,
you hold space and how you talk about what you're passionate about. Like I could feel it just there. You're like, oh, just lighting
thank
up
you.
so
Yeah.
much. Oh,
Thank you, babe. I love that. Command.
yeah.
That's a special word. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. And it goes to show too your journey as a businesswoman, which I want to pivot a bit towards too
Mhm.
for like the second half of this conversation. Because not all women have been able to or will ever be able to build the type of business that you have. And there's two things that kind of stand out. And one is your competition side of things. I'm curious if you've
Mm,
always been competitive, and then the other is the discipline. Have you always had
yeah.
this level of discipline?
Yeah, so starting with the commitment or the competitive, to be honest, I love competition. Like if I'm reading the book right now. It's by, what's his name? The guy. It's called Seven Ingredients for Business, and Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk. And
Nice.
he has seven ingredients, and I love it because it's like compassion, love, kindness, and it gives business examples on how to execute these things, and he talks about how important they are. For me, I would honestly say like one of my top business ingredients of how I try to operate my business is with competitive mindset, competition. I love it. I love it. It fires me up because I if, if I can't try to be better and better and better, like to me, I get so bored. So I think the competitive side probably stems from the fact that I played a lot of sports growing up. And I think sports was really the only thing that made me feel good about me. I was never great in school. I was never super book smart. I didn't do super well with friends in high school and relationships. For me, it was sports. I played rugby, I played soccer, and that was where I think I got a lot of any sort of validation of who I am was through sports. And of course, sports tend to bring out that little bit of that competitive side of you. So yeah, I think that when it comes to discipline, that was definitely something that was built. And I think the beautiful thing about discipline is it doesn't take long when you start to apply discipline and learn how to be more disciplined for you to notice a compound effect in your business, in your life, in your health. For me, it started with my weight. I overcame binge eating. I really struggled with that. And that was the hardest thing. I didn't think I could go to bed at night and not binge eat. I couldn't. It was like it had a chokehold on me. I couldn't not binge eat, and that binge eating was what was keeping all the extra weight on me, the inflammation, and the acne. My skin from binge eating was so bad, and then the doctors are putting you on medication, and it's like once I learned that I can take back that control and I can really change. That was like that first thing that gave me the confidence. Okay, what if I can apply that to business? What if I can now, get on the phone and like sell myself? I don't know this girl. I don't know this stranger. I'm selling her on this 6-week fitness program. I'm going to help her lose this weight. And, phone call after phone call, 5K a month, 10K, 50K a month. It's like just comes with time. And I think that discipline to me is just like looking at it and being like, oh, it's hard. It's going to be hard. Perfect. Perfect. It's going to be hard. Perfect. Which, by the
Yeah.
way, I quit vaping 3 weeks ago. And I know you know that I was vaping in Mexico 2 years ago. And that was another thing that I would say that was the biggest thing in the last 2 years of my life that I had no discipline with. I'm extremely disciplined in business, health, everything else. This was my little secret that no one knew about. It was my vape, I needed it. And I truly like had given it so much power over me. And I feel so good 3 weeks later knowing that like, no, once again, I had that discipline. I let that go, and it's like, okay, so now what's next? Right?
Yeah, I love that kind of domino effect that you describe. It's like in one way of your life, you build the discipline and like kind of built from competition. It sounded like it's like becoming the better version of you that you can
Mm,
instead of competing against maybe someone else in a sport, but it's almost you against you is what it's sounding
mm-hmm.
like here. And
Yeah.
that competition just bred more discipline. And one of my coaches said years ago, and it's stuck in my brain, is how you do one thing is how you do all things.
Hmm.
And I really do see that in you. So congrats on quitting the
Thank
vape
you. Thank
again.
you.
I remember
Yeah.
when
Thank you,
when
babe.
you did or when you used to vape when I saw you, and I remember having those conversations too,
Yeah, you
which
were one of the first people to point it out, and I was like, "Absolutely fucking not. No, thank you. Like, don't wanna hear it. Get lost." And now I'm like, I get it, it was such a distraction, and I'm waiting a few more months before I probably talk more vocally about this online because I really think that people that vape don't realize what it's doing, and it's not about the health, it's not about the lungs, it's like, I feel like I took a freaking quantum leap. That's the
wow.
only way I can explain it, like, I'm, like, alive again, I'm like a child, like, I don't know, I'm laughing again, I have a sex drive again, I'm so productive, Kelsey, my business in the last 3 months, even just in the last 3 weeks, Cam's like, "What are you do" like, I'm just alive again, and you don't realize when you have an addiction like that, how you're not present, you're always thinking about hitting it, and you're always thinking about so for me, that was that one little thing, and I had every excuse in the book, It was like I had convinced myself it did nothing. I had convinced myself it wasn't a big deal. I had convinced myself of all these things. And so when I listened to the book, The Easy Way to Quit Vaping, this was like such a cool way for me to learn that it was just my beliefs. It was my
Mm,
belief that if I quit vaping, I was going to get fat. It was my belief that vaping did nothing. So why do I have to quit? It was my belief that, you know, it's my one thing. "Oh, I'm so healthy. I do so good in life. This is my one bad thing. Who cares? I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I go to bed early." Like all these beliefs. And the book goes through these beliefs. And I'm laying on the beach listening to this and I'm thinking like, wow, like it was like my eyes opened up, right?
mm.
And because the book reframed those beliefs, when I decided to have that last vape and put it down, like I celebrated with joy and it was so easy. And that's the thing that I think I'm like most excited to share with people in the future is the fact that it was so easy. because my beliefs around vaping changed. So I'm not sitting here like, oh, should I do it? Should I go back? I'm just like, I don't need it.
Yeah. Was that Alan Carr's book?
Yes.
Yes. So I love that you read that. I read The Easy Way to Quit Emotional Eating years
Mm,
ago. I don't even know how long, probably like 6 years ago now. And it changed my life. And he has
wow.
that book for so many different things. So I
Yeah.
can relate in so many ways because that's what it was for me. It was the emotional eating and like
Mm,
similar for you in the past, the binge eating
yeah.
that it it all just comes down to belief, and it's funny how,
Hmm.
like, we get so caught up in, like, "No, if I do this thing, if I do that thing," and we take it outside of our brain,
Yeah.
but then we have these kinda, like, aha, like you said, it's like a quantum leap or
Yeah.
maybe realization that's like, "No, no, no, it's all in here."
Yeah.
So, I'm really happy and proud of
Yeah,
you
that's so
for
cool that you've read that.
yeah,
Thank you, babe. Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's incredible. Like it just for me it was another reminder of how powerful our mind is, but also how, it's so easy for us to give away our power. I really thought that like I couldn't quit. Like this was my deep dirty, dark secret that like no one knew. Lexi Bold could do anything she sets her mind to except quitting vaping. It was that one thing that was just in my way. And so, yeah, reframing your beliefs is everything. What you believe about something, I truly think can manifest in so many different ways. And so I always try to start there for sure.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing on the podcast for anyone listening who is like maybe vaping or they have a different mechanism in their life that helps them through. Yeah, read those
Yeah.
books because they're huge. And I
Oh,
want to take that kind of mindset into business more. I'm curious
hmm
if there was ever a time where you didn't believe you would be able to build the businesses too, plural, that you have. And what did you do to help push yourself forward and create such abundance and now wealth?
hmm Yeah, absolutely. So I think that there's definitely been times in my business where I didn't know, what's the next step, or you get to a point where you kind of, I want to say it's kind of like you're floating or you're stagnant or you're just kind of like, what's next? And truly, like, people aren't going to like this answer, but usually what helped me the most, Kels, is mentorship. It was the next coach, it was the next business coach, and that like I've learned, as a trainer, I've worked with so many trainers over the last 5 years that are incredible. I moved to Vancouver, I'd already been coaching for 8 years, I didn't need a trainer, I hired one. He was incredible, he taught me, more calisthenics, and, like, I'm always looking to learn. And I hired a business coach in June of last year, the biggest investment I've ever spent in my life, and it was really what helped me understand how to scale because I felt like, okay, I got from here to here, but I truly like I'd wake up every day and write down like my thing's always been 100K a month. I want $100,000 a month in my business. And I realized in June that I had been writing that down in my book for 18 months. And guess what? I was literally was sitting between 20 to 30K for the last year. Like it's not changing, right? So I'm like, okay, obviously something needs to change. I can't just keep wishful thinking. I can't keep writing this down every day. I truly didn't know in my mind how I'm supposed to take what I'm making and what the business is making and scale to that. I couldn't even tell you on paper. And so when I hired this business coach, it was like, aha, now I've paid someone who has done it, who understands it, who has the tools, and now I understand how to get there, right? So it's like a roadmap. I think that there's so many incredible people in life that are able to not only inspire us, but show us the way. And if we can just put our ego aside, because it was my ego telling me I didn't need a business coach. I made it this far on my own. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with health. Like I'm sure there's women that are listening to your podcast and they're like, oh, I really want to hire Kels. I really want to work with her, but like the ego is just like, like you don't really need the health coach. You don't really. And it's like, yeah, you really do. Because I think the most successful people in life understand that you don't need to do it on your own. In fact, I think that's what keeps you small and stuck. So scale, invest. That's really the biggest thing for sure that has helped me.
Yeah. It's such good advice and like how you framed it is so true. We're not meant to do things alone. And whatever that looks like, where you can reach out and get the support of someone, whether it is investing in a coach. Like I always say that's the answer too. It's like find
Hmm
someone who has what you want and figure out how to spend time with them. whether,
Mm.
they offer you a coffee every week, which they probably won't because they're probably busy, or it's spending 30K on their program or whatever it ended up being. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. What was the biggest shift that you realized through hiring this coach that has helped you see the growth and scale that I
Mm.
am totally assuming, just based off of how you're glowing, been able to reach and achieve?
Yeah. The biggest shift truly is I had to learn to trust people. I have worked so hard to get to where I am, and I wanna hodl it, like, I wanna coddle it all, like, I wanna do it all. I want to be the person doing everything in the business, overseeing everything, like, I've built this brand, and I didn't wanna trust anyone. I didn't want anyone to help me in the back end. I didn't want anyone helping with anything, and so instead, I'm just running around on, like, going crazy, and so I needed to understand that I need to trust my team more. I need to build my team more. I need to, train people and invest in people that are also going to help build this mountain, right? Because if I'm always trying to do it on my own, like not only do I think I won't be as productive because I'm doing a million things, but I think I actually will have more time to focus on my gifts that I'm super good at. So I think the biggest shift recently has been, yeah, learning to trust and trust people and trust the outcome and trust that the way you've been doing it doesn't need to be the way you're always doing it, right? I'm very old school. If you see the way I run my business, Kelsey, like you'd be like, this business makes that much. Like I'm so old school. Everything's Google Docs, everything's like payment charts that I've made in Word document. Like it's crazy. So now that I've brought in, an accountant, an assistant, everything, it's like, okay, like this is better. This makes more sense.
I remember when I saw you last in Mexico, did you buy a new laptop yet?
Oh my gosh, I did. I got a MacBook.
Okay,
I got a
amazing.
MacBook. That was life changing too. That was life changing.
Yeah. I remember
Hmm.
one thing you said to me, you were like, "Yeah, I'm running my however many figure business off my $500 laptop." And I was like, "If
Literally.
that's not a, like, change of paradigm, I don't know what is." Like, just hearing that
Yeah.
from you broke down a lot of limiting beliefs in my own head. I'm like, so often again we go to those externals. It's like, okay, like
Mm,
anyone who's maybe new to a fitness journey is like, okay, once I buy new shoes and a new outfit, oh, I need a new
mm,
gym bag, oh, I probably need new
mm,
headphones. And people just
mhm.
spend so much time on like the stuff that actually doesn't move you forward.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's really cool that you've had this new realization, which sounds like an
Mhm.
internal thing again of like more trust in
Yeah,
yourself, trust in others. They kind of go hand in hand. And I'm
yeah.
excited just to continue watching your journey as you grow and unfold and live your purpose, because that is definitely what this
Thank
is.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny you remember the laptop because it actually brings me to something I do wanna share, which is when you grew up with a poor money mindset or you had, limiting beliefs around money, that my laptop, there you go, right? Like I was making, 25 grand a month. My laptop was $500. It was so slow. And I would sit there and try to work through it. And it's like, that is because I, for so long, believed that I wasn't worth making a lot of money, that the money I did have was like it was just held. Like, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna lose it." So, I was operating still from a vibration of fear around money, right? I'm like, "Oh my god, like, what if I lose it all?" Like, yes, I'm Lexi and I'm doing well right now. What if all my clients leave me? What if you know what I mean? And so I think in business also, like, you really have to learn that money is energy. It is flowing to you, it is flowing away, it is flowing to and, like, have a healthy relationship with also letting go, and that's something I'm still working on because truly like I never thought I'd get to a point where I'm seeing these numbers and making this money, but I need to understand that like also this is just like this is energy I've put out into the world. I've created something, it's coming back to me, and more will come as long as I continue to show up and continue to let that flow and I don't block myself. So that laptop is just a prime example of how I was being kind of cheap, and it's like, well, the new laptop was, it's helped me so much more with my business. It's bought me back more time and and so yeah, it's just so symbolic that you brought that up because I'm like I do think that fear and scarcity around money when we've grown up without it or grown up hearing things like money doesn't grow on trees, you always think you're gonna lose it, and you can't think of it like that.
Yeah, that's such a gold nugget, like, what you operate from, it's the law of attraction, I feel like 101, like, people can feel that. So, how are
Mhm,
you going to attract more money into your life? Money coming in the form of energy from clients, right? How they invest in themselves, invest into you. How will you bring that in if you don't operate at that level, right? It sounds like you're talking a
mhm,
lot about kinda like the map of consciousness. Have you read
mhm.
that book, or do you
No,
kinda
I
know?
haven't. I actually haven't.
Oh, you would love it. So I haven't read he has 2 books, probably more. One of them's Map of Consciousness, and then the other one is called Letting Go. I can't think of the author's name right now, but I'll figure it out and I'll send it to you. But yeah, he goes through the levels of consciousness, and fear being, I think, like the
Mm,
lowest
yeah,
on the map of consciousness, where so many people live and exist, and I think they're just unaware that they're living there, but then their life is happening to them, or so
yeah,
they think it's happening
yeah.
to them. They're in that guilt and that victimhood and the shame and everything else that exists with
Mhm.
it. So, yeah, it shows that you're in a very high state of consciousness, and your results
Thank
show
you.
for that too. I'm curious
Thank you,
now
pal.
to wrap this conversation for the sake of sticking to our time. How do you define success in your life now?
Mm. You know what? Honestly, I think success is defined by multiple things, but the first thing that comes to mind is the quality of your relationships. I had like a little fight, little breakup with my boyfriend probably 9 months ago, and he said to me, he's like, "You're just so angry all the time. You're working so much. And it just, I was like, whoa. Like, I've hit so many big goals in the last few months. I was in prep for my show. I was competing. I don't even know how I was doing what I was doing, everything. And it was a moment where I was like, okay, wait a minute. None of this is worth it if the man that I sleep beside and will marry and love and am building a life with doesn't feel like loved by me. So for me now, I've really started to, look at it, okay, Lexi, yeah, you want to hit the next milestone, you want to make more money, you want to build, but also like I'm constantly rooting myself in the fact that to me, success is if people feel loved by you and if you're allowed to receive that love back and forth. And so I think that's one thing that I've had to kind of reframe lately is like success to me is my people feeling loved by me and my house being in good condition is what I call it. With my team, I'm like, my house has to be solid. My girls that work for me, like they need to feel appreciated by me. They need to feel loved by me. That is more important than if they're selling clients and scaling and this and that, although those things are important. So yeah, I think that's how I define success.
That is such a beautiful answer. You're making me wanna cry, like, twice on this call, and, like, you're tugging at my
Oh.
heartstrings. It feels really nice, like, in such a beautiful way. And is there anything to finish this off, is there anything that you still feel called to share that maybe I didn't ask, you want the world to know? The whole world listens
Mm.
to this.
I love that. Thank you, babe. Soon the whole world will, and I know that because you are incredible. And I love that you're doing a podcast because I truly think that it is more impactful. So I want to say to you, like, keep going. A podcast is slow. My podcast is in the slowest burn. Sometimes I'm like, why am I even recording when my Instagram has a crazier reach? But truly, it's so impactful. So I'm grateful you're doing this. I'm grateful you've had me on. And I think that honestly, the only thing I want to leave anyone listening with is if you have ever thought about competing, please reach out to me. I love talking about it. I will give you the real honest scoop. I believe in yourself and be open to it because all the women that I'm currently coaching to compete this year, none of them thought they would do it. I had to convince, I had to explain, and now they love it. I have diehard girls that are taking off seasons, building their glutes, they've found community in it. Some of them have turned pro, they're going to worlds next year. So I've seen women go from like I don't even know to like, I don't know if I want to wear heels to literally being pro champions, and I love that. I love that part of my career. It fires me up. So for anyone interested in possibly competing in natural bikini, I would love to connect with you.
We will put your Instagram in the show notes so they can reach out and find you, as well as, I mean, we didn't even touch on your retreats, but we can plug
No.
that below. I will have to do a whole
Of
nother
course.
podcast because I'm also very curious about that side of you and
Yes.
your business and how that's
Mhm.
grown. But I
Of
appreciate you
course.
taking the time today. Thank you for having this chat.
Of course, babe. Thank you so much for having me, and to everyone who's tuned in, keep tuning in. Kelsey's incredible. I'm so grateful that you guys are listening and supporting her and also supporting me. So thank you for having me, and we'll run it back. I gotta have you on my podcast soon.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Peace and love.